Hey, good morning, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, just recently, I had done a video talking about a Ben Bernanke speech from 2002, which pretty much outlined everything as far as quantitative easing goes, and then how the Federal Reserve was going to deal with the fact that the interest rates were going to be very low at that point, and what they could do to stimulate the economy or create inflation. See, the Federal Reserve's biggest concern isn't inflating the economy, which is their concern. It's deflation and how to combat that, right? So typically, like, the Federal Reserve would stimulate the economy with an interest rate drop, right? They would just drop interest rates around 5% or so, and this dropping of interest rates would stimulate the economy. You get new fresh loans out there. People will go out and buy cars and houses and whatever with the lower interest rates. Now, with the dropping of interest rates and the stimulating of the economy, this would cause asset prices to start increasing, right? And this is kind of what the Fed is shooting for, is a steady kind of growth, so everybody can, their investments grow and everybody's businesses grow, and this is kind of like a good thing, this 2% growth, right? So what ends up happening when the Federal Reserve dropped interest rates all the way down to zero and they started ticking them up, they couldn't get the interest rates up to 5% again, right? If they could get them to 5%, that would give them the room, the ammunition, in order to stimulate the economy with an interest rate drop. They know they can't do that, right? So what are some of the tools that they could use in order to stimulate the economy? Now, back in that 2002 speech, Ben Bernanke said that you could use tax cuts, right? Tax cuts along with the deficit spending, right? So with the corporate tax cuts, if you cut taxes to one group and you don't cut government at the same time, then you go into deeper deficit spendings, right? Because somebody has to make up for those taxes that got cut, right? And if you don't cut government to make up for it, then the future has to pay for that. And that's where this stimulating money came from, as far as coming out of the corporate tax cuts, was the equivalent of what Ben Bernanke referred to it as Milton Friedman's helicopter money, right? So those tax cuts were helicopter money. And now, one of the other things that they mentioned inside of there is that the Federal Reserve could use its words, right, as one of its tools. And he uses this little story about an alchemist who invents a machine that can create as much gold as he wanted to. And the moment that story is put out there for the public to hear, this credible story, the price of gold would immediately drop before the guy even produced one single ounce of gold, right? Just the idea that he can do it is enough to cause the market fear and a dump in the price of gold, okay? So what he refers to it as is a credible threat, okay? So that the Federal Reserve could just simply state words, use it as a credible threat, and change the value of the dollar, right? And they say it back in 2002 as part of their tools, right? So when I came across this Bloomberg article this morning, I thought for sure this is what I need to come out and tell you guys about. Let me see, am I on the right one here? Yeah. Because he says in here, far better for the Fed to issue a threat instead of a warning. This is where he's talking about an attempt to increase inflation. And the author says this, far better for the Fed to issue a threat instead of a warning. If inflation expectations continue to fall, the Fed should say, then we are going to have to abandon our plans to be patient and start cutting interest rates aggressively. And the market would be wise to recognize that now. That message, if clearly received, would cause inflation expectations to rise or at least stop falling and give the Fed more room for patience. So you see that the Fed being patient means they're not doing anything, okay? They're allowing those assets to roll off their balance sheet, the $50 billion a month, but they've been allowing that for quite some time now. And as far as interest rates changes, they're not doing anything. They're being patient. That means they're standing still. And the only thing they're doing is they're using their words. Their words are now the primary tool for the Federal Reserve. It's not interest rates drops. It's not changing around and messing with the market. It is simply their words. It is market perception that they are going to be using until September, okay? So as far as I'm concerned, you might as well just turn the Federal Reserve off for right now, right? As far as their speech and stuff like that, because it's all credible threats from this point on until September, when they actually do a change, if they do a change at that point. So anyway, I found that interesting. I found that link to that 2002 Ben Bernanke speech incredibly telling. If you guys get the opportunity to read that, it is really it has a lot of foresight to it. It's like I said, he talks about the quantitative easing. He talks about tax cuts. He even talks about the Federal Reserve stepping in and buying foreign debt. Right? I haven't seen that one yet, but that's one that they could go in, like literally just go up and print money and then start buying like the sovereign debt of foreign nations. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what that would be like, as far as the Forex markets go. But anyway, the primary tool coming out of the Fed is nothing more than their words. They have no actions that they are going to take until September. Okay, so whatever they say doesn't matter. It's just there for market sentiment purposes only. All right, talk to you guys later.